Okay, so this is a whip stitch. This is a stitch that is used for when you want to stitch on a felt on the back of a collar on a bespoke jacket, for example. So what you do with this stitch, with your needle, you want to poke through, but right underneath this stitch, you want to poke through here, hiding the stitch, so it can't be showing out here. It has to be under this purple one, and then you come out a few mil on the side and poke out like that and pull. Now you have to also establish what kind of size stitching is best for you. I like to do them around a few mil apart and a few mil wide, I would call that. But of course it depends on you. When I'm felling onto or doing this whip stitch onto a collar, I do them very small and also close together. It just looks better in the end. So for example, these are a bit wider stitches, and what I like to do is something more like this, something a bit more close knit. Now this is usually on the size that I like to do when it's on the back of a collar, but also when I do this kind of stitching, because of the felt, it does disappear a bit, so you don't see it very much, which is very good when you do a small stitching like that. So it's almost not very visible, which is great. Now these stitches are quite straight, parallel, but what you can also do is you can work on them being a bit diagonal, which means instead of poking in like down here, you would poke in a bit more diagonal and come up a bit more straight, like that. So I'd poke in a bit diagonal and come out straight, like that. So now for the back stitch, I've chalked in a line so that it looks straight. Usually when you do the back stitch, you will be doing it on a chalked in line, usually. So I will start from the back with a knot in my thread. I will poke through. So my first stitch will be actually a backwards stitch. So around a few mil behind, I will poke through. And when I come out, I want to come out right where I want my next stitch to start, like that. So now what I have is I already have one stitch, plus I have space to do another one, to go back one stitch. So usually you can choose to go right in here or a mil in front. I'm going to go a mil in front for now, just to show what it looks like. And I give myself that space in the front again. Try to be as consistent as you can with the spacing that you have. So try to do around the same mil distance on each one so that it looks consistent. It obviously sometimes takes a few stitches to get into that rhythm, like with me here. So I've got a few stitches in. It's like that. I also recommend not pulling too hard. Let it sit nicely. Sometimes it helps by laying it down and pulling it a bit. And then you can continue. Okay, and so to finish up, all I do is down here, I just sew through, but I come out where my thread came out, pull through, and I just double stitch on that one spot, and that should hold it together. And that is my back stitch now. You can see here, I went off a little bit. It's very easy just to by 1 mil go off a bit, so I would redo this stitch again just to get that straight. But that's in reality how I did it. So it was pretty straight until that one point, and then I got back on track again. But that in general is your back stitch. So another type of cross stitch is this cross stitch that is used sometimes to add on your pocketing onto your canvas to attach it. Usually your pocketing canvas would end right here. It would be folded and right here. So this stitch could be either on the pocketing itself, and this stitch could be on the canvassing. So usually with this stitch, what you want to do is when you poke through, you don't want it to go all the way through in the back side where you can see the needle showing and the thread in the end. You want it just to catch a few hairs. So to do this stitch, you work backwards like on the other cross stitch. So if you're left-handed, you work from right to left, and you're left-handed, you work from left. Sorry, if you're right-handed, you work from right to left. So after you poke through with your knot in the back, you then come across a diagonal line, and then you poke. You come out a little bit, with trying not to get too many hairs in the back fabric. Pull through, and try not to pull too tight. So it's supposed to sit comfortably where it's attached, but not too tight so that it causes any puckering. Then I do the same thing on the top. So I just go with a diagonal line. Try to keep these parallel to keep them nice and neat. I poke through, I come out. To avoid any of this knotting or being stuck with the thread, I would use beeswax to wax your thread so that it is nice and smooth when sewing through. And also it gives the thread a stiffness that is very helpful in keeping the thread to last longer. Alright, so for the knot in the end, all I do is I just double stitch this part, and it should hold. Double stitch. Sometimes I just go through like that. And then snip that off. And that is your cross stitch.